What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. Micah, is it more stressful to platinum Elden Ring or raise a three-nager?
3-year-old. Yeah, three-nager. That's it. Three-nager. Yeah. I quote unquote finished Elden Ring. I started my new game plus because it's just so fun, man. It really is.
Apparently, New Game Plus is a lot of fun in From games. At least the first one is, because from what I understand, is that every time you New Game Plus, the enemies scale up as well. But the first New Game Plus, the scaling is not in their favor. Like they I think their HP doubles, like, and the damage they put out like doubles, but you are further ahead of the curve than they are. So it's so apparently, like, your first New Game Plus is really fun because you can just go around wrecking shop. Most people call it like the Souls Revenge Tour. The first New Game Plus.
I started it today, and I killed the first 3 bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild because, like, you know what to do, you know where to go. You're immensely overpowered, and especially depending on your build, and runes feel like they double.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun, man. Now that I've I haven't really gotten my fill of it, but I can kind of talk about it on a more intimate level. Man, I really, really like that game, and I have not been taken by a game like that in a very, very long time. I'm at like 120 hours and counting, just playing, just having fun, just like adventuring. And when I finished it, I went back to a playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077 that I had started before Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't do it. Like, it's not the same. Like, the world feels fake compared to Elden Ring. And it feels incredibly artificial. And with Elden Ring, like, it's like people treat you with like you have a brain. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I went through that game. I got a platinum, and the only way you can get a platinum in the first playthrough is if you have a guide telling you how to do it. So I didn't go through it. I didn't go through that game as without a guide, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was my choice. Sometimes I just want to go adventuring. You know, like sometimes here's some ruins that I haven't gone in. Let me go here. You know what? There's this town of sorcery that I didn't go to the first time in Caelid, because what am I going to do in a town of sorcery? I got 2 katanas in my hand, right?
I'll give you the perfect example. So, like, I was playing the other day, and I was in Lemuria, and I got to the lift, the Dector lift or whatever it is, but I don't have both halves in the medallion yet. And there's like the old guy who's like, he's like, there's a tunnel and this, that, or the other thing. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about, but whatever. So I just go venturing, and so, like, I see this part of the map. Now, the mines in the game are kind of called out on the map. Like, they're this like little dark circle that you can see. So, like, if you see that, you can be relatively certain that it's probably a mine that you're venturing on. And so I went to the mine, or what I thought was a mine, in the very top right corner of Lemuria, and I'm like, let me go in this mine and, clear it out real quick and get some crafting materials and this, that, or the other thing. And when you go in there, like, it seems like it seems like a generic mine when you do it. And then, like, there's this ladder, and it just keeps going up, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're on the rock side precipice or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this is like a legit mini dungeon essentially. Like this is like another Castle Morn basically. So I'm
Yeah.
like, all right. So and I was like, let me see how far I can get in this, and I ended up making it all the way to the end where you fight like this magma fucking like worm, which took me a couple tries because he was a pain in the ass. And then you get past that part, and then all of a sudden, like you find this other lift, and now you're at the Atlas Plateau. And I'm like, holy, and like that's the kind of thing. Like it started as like, oh, this is just a mine, and just kind of unfolded naturally into this like very specific, like mini, small dungeon area that got me to the next map area essentially.
Yeah, man. Like, and everybody has like a ton of stories of stuff like that,
Yeah.
where it's just like, hey, like, what's this? And then I'll just go in and I'll kill an hour and a half trying to get through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then there's some uber boss at the end of it, and it's like, shit. Well, I'm kind of stuck. I wonder if anyone's here that can help. And if you're lucky, you can get somebody to help you. And if not, you can always come back. Like that game is that I've heard it compared to like the developers are like a dungeon master and we are the players trying to just adventuring and seeing what happens, whereas like a Ubisoft open world game is just, this is how you do this, go here, go here, go here, go here, go here. And they, the argument will be like, well, the Ubisoft games, the other open world style games have a more crafted narrative, which they might. No, they do, right? Like Elden Ring is incredibly obtuse. They have quests that start at the beginning of the game that you literally can't finish until you reach like the land of the giants. You know what I mean? Like the end game areas. So it's but those quests are interesting. But at the same time, like your finely crafted narrative, like better be on point, and it's usually not. If I'm being perfectly honest, because there's a game there that you have to tell, right? Or there's a game there that you have to play, right? Like take Far Cry, for instance, right? Far Cry has an interesting story, but it's paced incredibly poorly because you get, here's the start of this journey. And now you can either help one of three people and then like you lose the narrative and then you have to pick it back up again, which is the same thing as Elden Ring.
Yeah.
So
well, and not really, because like the only narrative in Elden Ring, like your main objective is to become the Elden Lord. And to do it, you have to kill like these 5 demigods essentially to get their shards of ring that they have. That's the only like plot setup that exists in the game. Like that's your singular focus from the get-go. And kind of to your point, like you talk about like a Ubisoft open world game, yeah, you have this main narrative which might have some twists and turns and some interesting twist in the tail, but not only is it paced poorly and you're doing a lot of stuff that doesn't really work towards it, but on top of that you have like 30 other sub narratives that are going on in side quests, and none of like maybe if you're lucky 1 or 2 tell a compelling story over the course of like 2 to 3 missions. Like I'd rather have like this kind of feels like the like Skyrim with the breaks kind of off. Like how Skyrim has like the main quest, but then you also have like the guild quest lines, which are a little bit longer and more drawn out and actually tell like a fuller story than just like the fetch side quest. Like I almost would rather have a game with the main throughway and then like 6 or 7 other side stories, but that are actually crafted well, that are actually like drawn out over a number of hours in the game. Like right now I'm trying to find like the city in the lost city or the city in the start, Nokron, whatever it is. And like that is a quest line that you happen upon intentionally because you have to go through a very specific part of the map to get to the quest giver. But it's kind of like all right, go talk to these few people and get some more information. And I know what I have to do to advance the quest. I also know that I'm not ready to do that yet. Like I'm not well equipped enough yet to go take on Star Scourge Radon in the giant field. So like that's fine. Like I'll put it on the back burner, but then I know that when I eventually fight him and beat him, that I'll get to probably see something really cool, like in this entire other part of the world map that exists that you're completely unaware of for like the first 20 hours of the game.
Like that one quest fundamentally changes the map.
Yeah.
like it's wild, man. And but yeah, like I like the option. I like the option of, hey, we're just gonna put you in this world. And there's a sense of discovery there that most modern games don't have, right? And there's a feeling of progression that feels different, right? Like and I think it's because you really get your ass kicked in the beginning. Like when you first see that tree sentinel, like that's your wake up call.
Yeah, you're like, let me stroll over to this fellow and give him a couple whacks on the rump with my blade, and then like, you get stomped out. And you're like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to fight this guy.
Right, like that's your first real wake up call. Like the first boss you fight, like when you come out of the tomb or whatever, like you're supposed to die then, right?
Yeah.
But like the tree sentinel, you're not supposed to die, right? And that's your first real wake up call. Like, oh shit, I got to get good. But it's not like I got to get good by like, I got to gain experience by stomping on ants for 150 hours before I can finally get past this. No, like there are other things to do. Like it's an incredibly well designed game. It's the best open world game that I've ever played. And keep in mind, I'm still in like the honeymoon phase of this, right? Like recency bias and all that. But I think it's the best open world game that I've ever played, and I'm including like Rockstar games and stuff like that. Like it's just everything is on point, and the lore is interesting if you can like get into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtext in the game. Like one of the things that I thought was really cool is that there's like a small mission where you can you come across this traveler on the side of the road, and she's like, hey, like my father is in this castle and he's trying to defend it, but he really needs to get the hell out of there. Can you go help him? And so you go, run into her father, and he's like, hey, if you see my daughter, give her this note. Like, I will leave here. Like, I promise, like, it'll be fine. And then, like, when you go back to the daughter, like, you find out that somebody killed her. And so it's like, well, that's fucking unfortunate. And then later on in the game, you come across this area, and the father, like, spawns in as a hostile NPC that you fight. Just because, like, he's been, like, driven mad and grief-stricken, and he thinks that you're responsible for his daughter's death because, like, he sent you to go talk to her, and then all of a sudden she dies. And there's no, like, it's not like there's a cutscene that, where you see him, like, oh, it was you, like, or there's, anything like that. Like, you're meant to infer it from the story beats that they do give you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to be as obvious, and that's fine. And there are some people that might not even see that quest, because if you don't talk to the one NPC to start it, then you might not even get there. The other thing too that I find interesting about Elden Ring is that it is a great bit of proof to not believe any discourse that you see on the internet, because to hear people that talk about From games and and mostly, weirdly enough, from people that don't play them, I don't think, but to hear people talk about From games, like, you think that, like, oh, like, these games demand the most expert precision. These games require you to be a gamer at the top of your skill set, and every input must be note perfect and frame perfect in order for you to beat some of these bosses. That's not true at all.
No. Trust me.
You can play the game that way if you choose to. But From Software games, and this goes back to the Souls games, give you so many tools in your tool chest that you have available to you in order to overcome these bosses and these difficult fights. The only difference is that you don't have like fodder. Like every enemy that you come across has to be, you can't just fucking button mash your way through, trash mobs. Like you have to still fight with purpose. But I'm still one-shotting like the fucking like zombie dudes that or the like the whatever this game's version of the Hollowed is. Like I'm still like one-shotting those guys. Like I just have to not act like an asshole when I do it. And like the sorcerers in the academy, like I can still, beat them pretty easily, but I can't just, tank these glintstone shot like these spells that they're gonna throw at me. And like you can summon help. Bosses have like elemental weaknesses that you can exploit. And it might require you to find something you don't have or go grind some levels to get your strength up, but all this stuff, but you don't have to be perfect. Like I was watching a video essay on the Souls games, and he talks about like hit points, like having, putting points into vigor in these games doesn't help you win. It gives you a larger margin of error. Like there are people that like can have low vigor builds because they're highly skilled because they don't take a lot of hits. But if you're not as highly skilled, you might want to put some points into vigor so that you have more room to make mistakes in order to conquer these battles and things of that nature. So I will tell anyone out there, unless you are just like the worst gamer of all time and just like completely incompetent when it comes to like action games, and you've been like curious about the Souls series but haven't wanted to give it a try for fear that like it's beyond your abilities, probably not true. Probably not true.
I'm living proof, guys. I like games, but I am not good at them. I'm really not. And but I'm still having a blast playing this game. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to 713, right? Level 713, because like it costs about 600,000 runes to get one level now. So it's every point is I'm really thinking about it. But I'll complete it for a second time because I as much as like the bosses aren't hard, right? They just hit hard, and like you said, like they have easy patterns, right? Like you can figure them out. They're not terribly difficult. You just have to get better at your position, right? Like everyone's making a big deal about Millennia being a really hard boss. She's not really hard. She's really cheap, right? Like she has a lot of tricks that she can use, and she hits like a truck. And that's the thing. Like you have to figure out. It's like a puzzle, and you have to figure out how to solve that puzzle. But like you said, you see people walking around level 1 beating the game.
Yeah.
Because because they figured out the puzzle. And look, a lot of that's just showing off, and a lot of that is execution, right? But you can focus on execution when you already know the puzzle.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. I don't see. I've looked at a list of upcoming games. I really don't see how any other game is going to take my personal game of the year. But all of you developers on notice, get ready for a bunch of Elden Ring clones, right?
But they're not going to be as well done. They're not. It's not
absolutely not.
It's not a formula you can
throw together. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's not a formula. This is the byproduct of this company making games. I mean, they've been making games for a very long time, but especially since 2009, when Demon's Souls came out. Like, this is just the evolution of that Souls formula that they've learned, crafted and learned, and also experimented with some side projects. Like Bloodborne and Sekiro are very different from the Souls games, even though they're in the same family. And this is kind of like the culmination of all those lessons learned throughout those games. Like they found a way to make a game that still stays true to its heritage, but is still accessible and easier for people to kind of find their way into than some of their older games were.
Yeah, man. Look, you're developers and publishers, they're just gonna see 12 million copies sold in a month, and they're gonna be like,
and they're just be
"Oh,
like, oh, people just want open world games without icons. That's all they want."
right." People want
just...
open world games with obtuse stories and SNK bosses. Let's just make them. Let's just give them hard bosses, one after another. And it's like, nah, you're not getting it, man. Like that's not. What
I can't wait to see Ubisoft take a stab at their version of Elden Ring. Except it'll be like the next Ghost Recon game. So it'll just be like completely miss like a lot of the purpose. Like, tons of different play styles. Like there's like 12 different guns you can use to do different things in this game. So it's yeah, it's like you said, there's gonna be a lot of clones, but I'm more excited to see. I suppose it's too late for Breath of the Wild 2 to really incorporate anything they'd have learned from seeing Elden Ring. Not that it needs to. Like Breath of the Wild was massively successful on its own, and I'm sure the second one's going to be just as successful. So, right. Micah, the king is dead. Long live the king. Geoff Keighley, single-handedly, that in a 2-year global pandemic, has single-handedly murdered the Electronic Entertainment Expo, which at least for 2022 has been canceled entirely. Even though they had already planned on doing a digital-only showcase version of the show this year. They said that, quote, "We're going to devote all of our energy and resources to delivering a revitalized physical and digital E3 experience next summer," which I don't necessarily 100% believe, because Geoff Keighley, merely by being, and I think Jeff Grubb said this on GamesBee Decide, but I will steal from him, merely by being a competent exhibitor, has basically killed E3 and their massive incompetence.
Yeah. Look, you better put some respect on Geoff Keighley's name, even though he spells it weird. I mean, look, I've never been to an E3. I would imagine that E3 is a real pain in the ass to attend, especially if you have to work.
It's so funny because I saw an anecdote. So Dan Shu, who used to be the EIC of EGM, but he works for Blizzard now, and so he's seen E3 from both angles essentially. And so a friend of his said, like, I remember running into Dan Shu at E3 in 2019, the last one that was in person. So I guess it might have been 2020. And he's like, oh, how's it going? And he's like, oh my God, it's so much worse from this side of it. He's like, as bad as it was from the media side, it's so much worse from the exhibitor side. So yeah,
I can imagine,
hard all the way around. Some people were lamenting that the importance of E3 is still as like a developer show, and to allow people, one of the few opportunities that they have to network together and to all be in the same kind of place when there's the epicenter of gaming going on. Personally, I think that enough big players had broken off from E3 already to this point. Like, Sony had already been like, fuck off, and Nintendo had been like, fuck off for many years. So enough of the big players had already kind of broken off. EA, another one. That was the value of that still actually there. Like obviously, like a lot of the smaller indie developers could still coalesce around that, but there's lots of shows still that are much more fondly put together, much more fondly admired and much better put together. Things like PAX and things of that nature, that I feel like that those opportunities will still exist. But that's probably the biggest loss for E3, is just that networking capability that a lot of folks are losing. I'm not a big con guy personally, so I'm not upset to see it go.
That's cons are a young person's game, man. Yeah. I can't. I've done it. I'll probably never do it again unless like my kids are are into it. You know what I mean? But like, it's a pain. It really is a pain, and that's just going as like a regular person. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I'm not saying don't do it, right? Because I had a good time when I went, but like it's a work day, and I and I wasn't working. Not real work. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was inevitable. The end
Yeah.
of E3, I think. Like you said, the big players realize, hey, we can like ostracized wrestlers. We can control our narrative, right? And we can present you the vertical slices that we want to present you in a way that we want to present them. It doesn't necessarily have. Look, I love state of play. I love Nintendo Direct. I don't love Nintendo Directs, but I love the format of the Nintendo Direct. I get all the information I need in like a sizzle reel. I don't have somebody getting up there making stupid jokes, calling themselves Mr. Coffee, and all that shit, right? Like, I don't have C-list celebrities trying to, make jokes and shit, like who are clearly there because like it's a paycheck. Like, so yeah, it was inevitable, and yeah, long live Summer Games Fest or whatever it's called.
I will say the nerd in me will miss the like the business side of the presentations a little bit. I like seeing all like the figures and stuff like that. And look,
Well, that's you.
yeah, some of the coolest moments were in like the nerdy, like no one will ever forget the 2013, PS4 dropping bombs on Xbox from earlier in the day.
Here's how you trade games with your friends. Like, oh, okay.
God, can you believe that was 9 years ago now at this point?
Oh shit, man.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. Meanwhile, there's a car in Gran Turismo 7 that has like PlayStation branding on it, but it's got like a PS4 logo. I'm like, oh, they couldn't even like upgrade it to PS5s, like the fucking bastards. It's like they put this ancient console on there. Craziness.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, so Summer Games Fest, which I also appreciate because I feel like that Summer Games Fest, even though they have like the one big weekend, where like Games Fest Live happens or whatever the fuck Geoff Keighley calls that, it does feel like that it is spread out across the summer a little bit more, so that I don't have to literally take time off of work to absorb all the goings-ons that are happening. Yeah. So
yeah, it's not happening it's not all crammed in one day, and yeah. So Terrence went to an E3 once. He said he had a good time. But
well,
yeah,
he also went before it was open to the public, which I think if I was not going to go as press, that is how I'd want to experience it, because not only am I not a con guy in general, I'm also not a stand and wait in line guy.
Yeah, that's you and him, boy.
Yeah.
He's like, forget this.
Well, because like the rational part of my brain can't separate the experience from what the experience is. Like, I'm not going to sit in a line to play, for 2 hours to play a 10-minute demo of a game that's going to be released in 3 months. Like, that's stupid. Like, right. I can't fathom how dumb that is. To do that.
Jay and I stood in a line for 10 hours to sit in a room for 6 hours. Like yeah. I can't do that shit anymore, man. I just can't.
But at least like in the 6 hours that you were in the room, like you got to live experiences that were like somewhat once in a lifetime. Like you got to see people talk and see panels that, even though they were talking about something that was going to be happening later on anyway, like you still like the discussion was still not replicable. Like I'm literally talking about like playing the vertical slice of a video game that I'm just going to be playing in 3 months anyway. So I'm just like, that's not 2 hours of time well spent to sit in this line to play this thing that I'm going to play again, except with more context and greater skill later on.
Oh man. If you want to talk about uh Elden Ring or E3, or you have fond memories of E3s, you know, in college, skipping class so that you can see the Microsoft presser. Go to denspixels.com/fans and talk about it in our Discord. Um, there's a bunch of stuff you can talk about. I wanted to start that F1 show, but I haven't had a chance to yet.
Too much Elden Ring.
Too much Elden Ring, man. Too much Elden Ring. Now that I have completed the story, I think I can ease up a little bit. But yeah, I don't know what else I'm going to play after that. Anyway, go to denspixels.com/fans and be invited to our Discord. That's the whole point of that sentence. Go to youtube.com/densepixels and subscribe. Hit the like button, hit the bell notification button to be notified of when this show hits YouTube. Subscribe to all of the TMP Studios podcasts, including The Nerd Apocalypse, Black on Black Cinema, Coming Distractions, and the weekly preview episode of the Look Forward Political Podcast. And go to densepixels.com/premium and give us either $5 a month or $50 for a year to get access to our back catalog of all of the premium content, including the airing of grievances, where Jay and I discussed the first 7 seasons of Seinfeld are in the can. So listen to all of those, and then by the time you're finished listening to those, we'll get started on season 8. No Time to Bleed, The Men with the Golden Tongues, Upstage Conversation, and the entire episode of the Look Forward Political Podcast at densepixels.com/premium.
So last week, Heart Machine partnered with G4 to announce their new game that's coming out, which is a spiritual sequel to Hyperlight Drifter, which is called Hyperlight's Breaker, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a great excuse for me to finally go back and play Hyperlight Drifter, a game that I bought several months ago when it was on sale on the Nintendo Switch, that I've heard many, many good things about in terms of it being one of the finest indie games ever made. But I never played it. And so I started Hyperlight Drifter over the weekend, and I beat Hyperlight Drifter over the weekend. Now, not as crazy a feat as you may think from hearing that, because the game's only like 5 or 6 hours long. Like, it's not a super long game by any stretch of the imagination. It is a very good game. I think that I would have been more amazed by it had I played it in 2016 when it first released, because when you play Hyperlight Drifter, it's very obvious some of the games that have come since then that it inspired that have done it in a much more polished manner. Not that Hyperlight Drifter is unpolished by any stretch of the imagination, but like, you could definitely tell in playing this game that everyone at Supergiant Games played this game and were like, and this definitely inspired Hades, at least as far as like the gameplay perspective of it goes. The game unfolds like this. You are the titular drifter in this world that has been brought down by some kind of cataclysm that still kind of remains as a pox among the land. And you have to go explore these 4 unique areas. It's a top-down action-adventure game with very fast combat. You have a sword that you can use to slash with. You can dash around the game board, and then you have an assortment of guns that you can equip to do ranged attacks. And that's kind of it. Like, you can upgrade your abilities throughout the game through pickups that you get, that you can then cash in at like the central hub to get new abilities that you can do with your sword or extra ammo with your guns or things of that nature. But it's pretty bare bones. Not only is it bare bones kind of in the gameplay and it's very simple gameplay, but the story is told in a very interesting fashion. So there is no exposition. There's no even text in the game. Like, the only text that's in the game is the tutorial button prompts that you get when you first start playing. So that, like, press B to dash, press Y to slash, that kind of shit. All of the story is told through these kind of like flashback-esque cutscenes. It's told through the environment that you see in these different areas that you go to. Some of the NPCs that you can roll up to in the game, when you talk to them, they don't speak. You instead see these like still images that kind of tell a small story about how, they got to where they are. It's not a game that, like, there's a lot of people that talk about this game philosophically. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there's a lot of philosophical, like, point to this game. It tells a specific story. It's just told in a very interpretive fashion, where it's not spelled out for you. Okay. That being said, the game is really fun to play. The combat is tough, but it doesn't quite cross into like frustratingly difficult. Like, it just, again, requires a little bit more precision. You can't dash like a maniac. You have to learn how the enemies attack, and you have to learn how to best evade them. And which methods work best against them. Like, when it's better to use a ranged attack, and when it's better to use to get up close and slash and then dart away. But again, I was kind of glued to it. I didn't really want to put it down. Like, it definitely has a, well, I'll just go to this next area, I'll just go to this next room kind of vibe to it, because the chunks of gameplay are broken up into pretty manageable segments. So, like, you don't go, more than 5-10 minutes without getting to a point where you feel comfortable, like, dipping off the game if you need to. So, like, that in turn makes it easier to stay on the game for just one more kind of thing. It's an excellent game. Highly recommend checking it out if you're a fan of those action games, especially if you played stuff like Hades and things of that nature. Because, again, Hades very much was inspired by this game. Unsighted, if you guys played that, very much inspired by this game. There's a lot of games that have come in the past couple of years that when you play Hyper Light Drifter, you'd be like, oh, this game definitely like played Hyper Light Drifter, because it kind of, it's not inventing the genre, but it definitely did put a pretty good sheen on it. And it's got an interesting development story. The guy that heads up the studio has had some chronic health problems throughout his life, and that's kind of exhibited in a way in the character in the game as well, which makes it kind of cool. So this was fun. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to go back and like 100% the game, because there's definitely a lot of extra optional stuff you can do in the game if you want. But I am excited to see what's coming next from the studio. This is also the same studio that made Solar Ash that came out on PS5 last year. So,
okay, very cool.
Yeah. For the second show in a row, it might be not second show in a row. For the second time in several weeks, there's news coming out about potential turmoil at another Microsoft game studio. This time at Undead Labs, who are the developers of the State of Decay series. Kotaku published a report that included allegations of sexism and mismanagement at the studio, and paints a picture of a game project which is struggling to get off the ground several years after its official reveal. I gotta tell you, we take for granted how smooth, at least on the surface, things seem to run at Sony's big first-party studios. Because, like I said, this is already the second story that we're seeing of a Microsoft studio having troubles. Moon Studios, who Microsoft worked closely with for the Ori games, had troubles. Even studios like Ninja Theory, who came out with this new like melee combat game, like Bleeding Edge, lasted for how long? Like, it didn't even, I don't even know if that game officially released.
I don't even remember that game.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, so apparently Undead Labs having some issue right now. Here's a quote from a staff member. When they were acquired by Microsoft, we were afraid they would come in and change our culture, but our collapse came from within, and we could have actually used Microsoft's help.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of how that usually goes.
Yeah,
but yeah, so it's unfortunate to hear this. But again, this is kind of the growing pains that people don't talk about amidst the excitement of acquiring all these studios is you don't know what you're getting, especially with more inexperienced studios sometimes. And Undead Labs, as far as I am aware, are really only known for the State of Decay games. And the problem sometimes with smaller studios when they get pushed into more ambitious projects is that they don't have the infrastructure, or they don't have the management, or just the talent sometimes to kind of do this. And I'm not saying that any of this directed at Undead Labs specifically, but we've seen this many times before where small studios have a challenge to, tackle more ambitious things as time goes along.
Yeah, I don't I don't take any like glee or schadenfreude in this. This sucks, man. Um I'm not a big State of Decay fan. I hope any issues kind of get resolved. Yeah, I was not expecting like, hey, we could have used we thought Microsoft was here to save us from this type of culture. I guess that is a testament to Microsoft's place in the industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people think highly of them, and it's probably because they run a smooth ship. Yeah, I don't know, man. I hope things work out.
Yeah, more to come on that. Um, they're not all peaches and cream at PlayStation though. A developer that worked on Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart spoke out after she felt she had been erased from the development of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart because Insomniac's Mark Stewart, who's the lead designer of the game, did a talk at GDC and kind of glossed over people's contributions to the Rivet character in the game. Sam Maggs was the writer that went on Twitter to express her frustration, talking about how she was heavily involved in the character creation process. But I think she gets to the point that I'd rather focus on. And I'm going to quote her words entirely here. This speaks to a broader issue of game developers being entirely erased from the narrative of their own work once they leave a studio. I'm not even credited as a writer on the game, despite dedicating a year and a half of my life to it and creating Rivet's personality from scratch. So basically, what she's talking about is it is common practice in the games industry that the people whose name makes it into the credits of the game are typically the people who are working at the studio when the game is shipped. So like let's say a game takes 5 years to develop, and Micah, is a lead writer on this project, and he leaves 2.5 years into the process. Well, even though Micah did a ton of work to contribute to this game's story and to the development of the game, Micah's probably not going to be credited as the lead writer or a writer in this game. Sam Eggs does mention that she was credited in the special thanks section of the game credits, so not excised entirely. But if you were a writer in the industry, having being in the credits in the game, being accredited, and having writer next to your name in the game, I feel like is better for your resume and better for your overall body of work than just being mentioned in the special thanks, and then you have to sit there and explain what they did. I was given I find this talk pretty interesting because I don't know too many industries where people who contribute mightily on projects aren't credited for them. And now it's kind of a unique thing, right? Because there's not too many industries out there that give public accreditation for work done on a project of some kind. Most people aren't leaving movies, halfway through the production process. So like, I don't even know if that's a really one-to-one comparison.
Yeah, the only comparison I can think of is when an artist or a creator comes up with a character while under the banner of a Marvel or DC, and like the Disney shows have been getting flack for this, right? Like characters that shows that have a specific look, um, that a certain artist came up with, and they're not necessarily given, they, I think they got a special thanks to this person, and but like they took the entire look and feel of this character from this run like whole
Mhm.
cloth, right? Like the person who created the Winter Soldier. um the Winter Soldier is not a old creation, right? He's relatively new. And everyone knows who the Winter Soldier is, but no one knows who created that comic book character. So it's and the person who created that character does not get like compensation, any additional compensation. They were
No
compensated
royalties or
for
anything like
no
that.
royalties. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were compensated for the work that they did while under the Marvel banner. But like, hey, thanks for creating Master Chief, Bungie. Now we're gonna make a TV show of it, and you're not gonna see any of that, right?
Hmm.
So on the one hand, you know, I I understand where the company is coming from. Like, we paid a mercenary to create something for us. Like, I'm not going to continue to pay the mercenary, right? Like, there's this movie called Four Brothers, right? Right. The villain is like, you hire out of town shooters so that they go out of town when the job's done. Like, go away. Like, I'm not going to keep you on the payroll. Like, you did a job, good. Now go away. At the same time, like, I understand what it's like to be a creative.
Hmm.
I understand what it's like to it's hard, guys. It's really hard creating stuff.
Yeah.
Like it is, man. Like true geniuses and savants can just come up with things on the fly. No, man, like creating something, especially like a character, like a fully formed character, that takes time, effort, imagination. Like that takes things. That's why people hire people to do it,
Yeah.
because it's not easy. So I understand where Miss Sam is coming from. Um, Look, this is going to be one of those things where I ride the fence, right?
Yeah.
Like I see both sides, and I see both sides equally, and I'm not going to fall on one way or the other. But it is an interesting conversation.
I just don't see the harm in crediting someone in the main credits, whether they work at your studio or not. Like if they contributed significantly to the game. Like I don't know, is there like back royalties that they're owed if that's the case, if they don't work for the studio anymore? Like if is that what it is? Like if they're credited in the game's credits, like they're owed something different? I don't know how game development contracts work. But I just don't understand why that's such a hard issue to parse. Or is it then like, oh, well, if I let this person in, do I, have to let this other person also like list them as a writer because they contributed to X, Y, or Z? I don't know. Like video game credits are 10 minutes long anyway. Like I don't think that adding, a couple more names to the byline is gonna hurt things. And at least you're giving people the proper accreditation that they deserve. And I'm not saying that you need to put her in the game. Like it's not like a Batman Bob Kane situation. So that if you make like the
Right.
next Ratchet and Clank game and Rivet's a character in it, that you have to credit her as
Yeah,
creating
special
Rivet.
thanks to Siegel and Schuster for their characters, right?
Right.
I think you're right. I think even a mention, right? Like not just like a special thanks, but like character created by, or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
Like especially because this game is a legacy. Ratchet and Clank is like it's a known quantity, at least in our circles, right? Like there
Yeah.
was a goddamn movie based off of it, for God's sakes. um just a little credit that says, Ratchet character created by, Rivet character created by, Clank character created by. I don't see the harm in that.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, was it done maliciously? I'm getting the feeling that this person is kind of intimating that this was done intentionally. Um, if it's done intentionally, like that's foul. But if it's not, if it was a mistake, okay. But at the same time, like you can easily just say it was a mistake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like I said, I don't think there's a lot of malicious intent if you're just telling an anecdote at a game developer conference
Right.
presentation. You know what I mean? I wouldn't expect someone, especially the lead designer of the game, to sit there and just like list every single person that was involved in the making of it. So I get the hard feelings, and again, not to assume what Sam Maggs was feeling in this moment, because that's not very fair. But I would imagine that she's probably a little raw in the first place, that her name was, not accredited as she thought it should. And then this kind of triggered, that response, which I think is a completely fair thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think her broader point is one that more people should talk about. And I've heard a few people talk about this here and there. I think it deserves a broader discussion. And I almost wonder if this would be best addressed in the push for unionization. Like, I wonder if like a union could help arbitrate that discussion. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I think they should, though. Like I said, I think people should get credited for the work that they do, and in the proper fashion.
Yeah. Like if it's just about money, I mean, like, you did the job, but
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, oh, you really like this character? It was created by this person. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Speaking of unions,
Yeah, speaking of unions, the the joke was the union leader was like, "Yeah, we like to thank Jeff Bezos for going up into space because that gave us time to create a union when his ass came down." I mean, I love it, right? I love it. Like, go to densepixels.com/Amazon for all of your Ratchet and Clank needs. Go to densepixels.com/Amazon. Let's see what Ratchet and Clank are, what you can get at densepixels.com/Amazon. Okay, yeah, Ratchet and Clack. That's not that's not right. You can get a Jinx Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart Ratchet small plushie, 7.5 inches, stuffed figure from PlayStation video game for fans. What
What
for
a deal.
$19.99. So you can get yourself 7.5 inches of Lombax by going to densepixels.com.
That sounds gross.
By going to densepixels.com/Amazon. They have a Ratchet one too. Ratchet is on sale right now for $14.89. I feel like that's kind of foul, man. I feel like that's real foul. Like Ratchet and Clank, right? They're a team, right? Like equal pay for equal work. You know what I mean? Like Ratchet wouldn't be able to glide down without Clank. You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't be able to make some of those jumps. And then where's the Rivet doll? Come on, man. Come on. That you talk about erasure. I can't even remember the other Clank.
It was Kid.
Kit. There you go. See, erasure, man. Like, don't erase these women, man. Like they need to be here.
Your brain erased the other character.
Here, they do have a Rivet doll. Again, on sale for $14.89. Again, equal. They're not the same price, man. Like they are equal pay for equal work.
So we are to believe that Amazon is not only not paying women's wages as they need to, but also robot wages grossly underrepresented on Amazon as well.
That's right. Come on, man. I don't know if Lady Lombaxes wear bras, but like they're gonna be burning them soon. Like you better start paying them equally. Even if she wasn't on sale, she's $19.98. And Ratchet is $19.99. Come on, man. You couldn't give it a penny? Couldn't give her the penny?
That's right.
Oh my God.
That's one less fraction of a cent for us to be able to partake in when you buy these buy these stuff. Oh my God. Shit. The April PlayStation games that you get for free are available as you're listening to this. Hood, Outlaws and Legends, the multiplayer Robin Hood game, is available for free. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, the remaster that everyone was clamoring for, now available for free. And once again, none of you have any excuse anymore to not play the finest roguelike deck building game in existence, because Slay the motherfucking Spire is also available for free on the PlayStation. And I highly, highly recommend you check it out.
I put it in my library.
There you go.
And I was gonna come on here and lie to you and say I'll check it out. Like I'm probably not, but I at least put it in my library.
Look, if any of you have listened to me talk about this game on the show for the last 3 years and is like, yeah, it sounds interesting, but I don't want to pay for it, you don't have to now. You can just download it for free if you have a PlayStation. I think it's on Game Pass too. So again, none of you have any excuse. Speaking of Game Pass, a couple games coming to that this month. I will call out the notable ones. Notably, MLB 22 The Show, going to be available on Game Pass starting today on day one. Still kind of weird that is the case. But here you go. Dragon Age 2 is available via EA Play. So is Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare and Star Wars Squadrons. All available through the cloud. I think you've been able to get them on the console, but now they're available for the cloud. The new Life is Strange, Life is Strange True Colors, is going to be available April 12th. Lost in Random, again, another EA game, coming to April 14th. And the game that you really want to check out, all of you out there, Cricket 22, coming to cloud and console today.
Here's a little Micah trivia. I will never forget Dragon Age 2 because the weekend that game came out, my then fiance said she didn't want to marry me anymore, and then she left and went to PAX.
God, was that long ago that
Yeah,
happened?
man. That was a long time ago, man.
That is over a decade at this point, and I still vividly remember helping you get over your struggles at the bar, which was funny because Micah famously does not drink. So.
Y'all have a water, please.
I definitely had a couple beers though, for sure. Couple games came out this week. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga comes to every console imaginable. Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition comes out on the Nintendo Switch. Demio comes out on PC. Green Hell VR comes to Oculus Quest. Slipstream comes to PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. And Dream Vibe comes to the PC. Wonder how many people are going to check out Chrono Cross. I didn't get very far in it when I played it back when it first came out in the halcyon years of 2000. Didn't care for it that much. I remember.
I always get Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger confused.
How?
Chrono.
I mean, I get that, but like one of them was one of the seminal games of gaming history, and the other one was Chrono Cross.
Right, just the name, not the games. No, I don't get the games confused. I remember distinctly falling in love with one of them, and just the name is just different. That's all.
Yeah. Some scuttlebutt. That was rumored has finally reared its head. 4 United States senators have called for the FTC to investigate and put a little bit more scrutiny at Microsoft's $68.7 billion deal to acquire Activision Blizzard. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Sheldon Whitehouse, and Cory Booker all sent a joint letter to the FTC saying that the two companies have, quote, failed to protect the rights and dignity of their workers. Workers at Activision Blizzard, following years of rampant sexual misconduct and discrimination and unfair labor practices, have led calls for greater transparency and accountability in the gaming industry, and we are deeply concerned that this acquisition could further disenfranchise these workers and prevent their voices from being heard. Ironically, the merger is actually like the best thing for that company from that standpoint, I would say.
First of all, get your politics out of my video game. There's really no point in why. Not everything has to be political, except when it is, which is usually all the time. You just don't realize it because you're not paying attention. I know who 3 of those people are.
Who don't know? You don't know Sheldon Whitehouse?
No, not particularly.
Again, these are arguably the four most progressive senators in the United States Senate, so I'm not surprised that it's coming from them specifically. It's just funny because, yeah, typically when one giant company is swallowing up another giant company, it does tend to negatively impact the workers of that company, just from a workers' rights standpoint. But I think this might be like the first case where actually the workers are probably better served by being under Microsoft than under their current leadership at Activision Blizzard.
Jesus Christ.
Which is incredibly ironic. Like, if anything, I'd be like, hey, like, you're not going to be giving Bobby Kotick like a $500 million parachute payment, are you? Like, in this deal? Like, because that's probably what you want to avoid. But yeah, they're casting some doubts that, you know, workers will be properly recognized in this merger. I disagree, honestly. Like, I really think that this is it's probably better to let them go off with Microsoft.
See the quote from that person from Undead Labs. We were afraid they would come in and change the culture.
Yeah, save us, Microsoft.
Our collapse came from within, and we could have really used their help.
Oh my gosh!
Look, I'm not surprised that the fun police don't want you to have Activision games day one through Xbox Game Pass. But
that's what I'm more disappointed about. Like that's why I'm not allowed to be a senator. One of the many reasons that I'm not allowed to be a senator. It's like I'd be like, now I have serious concerns about future Diablo games in the Diablo franchise not being multi-platform if this acquisition were to go through. I feel like that this needs to be addressed by the FTC to guarantee that all Blizzard games will still be playable on PlayStation consoles in the future. And be like, you need to concern yourself with workers' rights. And be like, no. Like, I need to make sure Diablo 5 is playable on my PlayStation 7. Like, that's the big concern for me.
I'm very curious about the they say both companies have a poor history of worker treatment. I'm curious what the Microsoft end of that is.
Well, see, I think a lot of that stems from Microsoft's previous run-ins with the federal government, which Microsoft has a long and storied history of the federal government. Basically, a lot of the reason that a lot of tech mergers really didn't happen in the early 2000s was because Microsoft overstepped and got their hands smacked very hard by the feds, and people and all of the big companies out there kind of looked at that and were just like, we definitely don't want the same thing to happen to us. Like, it's one of the reasons why Google never got acquired by anybody, when you would assume that Google, as they were on the come up, would have been like ripe targets for acquisition from a bigger firm, but people were very afraid to go after them after Microsoft got smacked in the face by the FTC during the Clinton years. So I think it probably stems from that a little bit.
Well, there you go.
We turn to the Dense Pixels post office. We'll start with Daniel, who says, what are the odds that Bethesda does not learn from Hello Games and CDPR and many other games, quite frankly, and overhype Starfield to an unachievable level?
I mean, that's their job, right? Like they have to hype this game up. The problem isn't overhyping the game. The problem is making sure the game works.
Yeah.
That's all they need to worry about. Like the hype is already here, right? The hype train, like people are getting the coal so that they can shove into the engine a little later on down in the year. People are gonna get hyped no matter what, because it's a Bethesda game and it's a new IP. It's Skyrim in space. Like that, I'm hyped off of that. Right. So it's going to get hyped no matter what. They need to focus on making sure that this game is playable. And I know that's a weird bar to set, but
it's not that weird. I mean, but like you mentioned, all these companies that overhyped and under delivered on their games. We can also throw Bethesda Softworks into that mix as well.
Yeah.
With the debut of Fallout 76. Now, while they stealth dropped Fallout 76, during their E3 presentation just 4 months before it came out, they did promise like this grandiose, like, oh, this is going to be the online Fallout that you guys have wanted. ever since Fallout 3 came out, and it's going to have everything that you could possibly want from this online Fallout game. And then when it released, it fucking sucked. Like, it sucked hardcore and was not worth $60. And eventually had to become what was I don't think it's free to play, but I think it might as well be, like, as cheap as the game probably sells for. Carrie can definitely correct us if I'm wrong on there. But I think that they can look in the mirror at their past failures as well, in order to not overhype this game that's coming out. And I think generally Bethesda does a pretty good job of that. A lot of their partner games, they don't sit there and beat you over the head with, constant presentations and things like that. Like, I feel like most of their big games, like I'm thinking of Deathloop, I'm thinking of Doom and things of that nature, have been stuff that they've shown appropriately, but not oversaturated the market with this stuff. If anything, like with those last couple of releases, Deathloop, I'm thinking of specifically, they really left you wanting more. Like I remember like a month before that game came out, before the final preview stuff started hitting media, people were just like, I still don't really understand how this game works. Like until they started showing a little bit more. But yeah, I think they've done a pretty decent job. I think, trust me, I think they learned a lot from the Fallout 76 debacle, and are not likely to repeat that again. So
yeah.
Johnny says, with Zelda being delayed to 2023, he has a couple questions. Number one, do you think Nintendo will give us a holdover game for 2022 with a possible Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD combo? And then tinfoil hat time. Do you think this game is being delayed so it can be refined and tuned for a possibly new or better Switch console releasing around the same time?
No and no.
Yeah, I think to his first point, the rumors are that they've had a Wind Waker like remaster, Twilight HD remaster, in the works, because all they would have to do is port the Wii U version,
The Wii version
of the Wii U version of those games over, because both those games did get remasters on the Wii U. So I wouldn't be shocked if that was coming. Besides that, we're already getting a holiday 2022 game from them, and it's Pokemon. So, which I think is one of the reasons why they felt comfortable delaying Zelda in the next year. On the hardware point, no, I don't think we're at Switch 2 times yet, and I think once the Switch OLED came out, the dreams of the Switch HD have sailed at this point.
Yeah, I don't. I never got a Wii U. I don't really know what the differences were between the Wii. I can't remember what the differences were between the Wii and the Wii U.
Well, the Wii U actually had a proper game controller, and fortunately, with Twilight Princess, that game was also developed and released for the GameCube. So really, they were just able to take the GameCube version of the game, which had proper controls, and just HD remaster it, essentially.
But it didn't feel like a. It felt like a. Did it feel like a PS4 to a PS4 Pro, or did it feel something less than that?
I mean, less than. It was still a Wii U. Like it's still like not. It's still not cutting edge hardware.
Right.
Put it this way: if they do this, it's not like Twilight Princess is going to look like Breath of the Wild. It's still going to look like Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker, fortunately, has a very unique art style, so you don't have to worry about that. I would love if they came out with Wind Waker. Wind Waker is I think the only 3D Zelda game that I have not ever played, because I didn't have the
really
GameCube.
good.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It's really good.
That's what I hear. So, if they do release that, I will certainly check it out and probably run through it, because I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I thought I was
gonna hate that game just because like he looks like a kid and he looks weird and right and like I really love that game. Yeah. That game was great.
I like that art style. Like I said, everything I've seen of it, like with the characters and stuff like that, it looks excellent. You don't have to make things look the same all the time. It's fine. It's fine to vary up things like that, and just kind of roll with it. And I think that works out really well. So,
ironically, the Zelda game that I thought I would like, the gritty, realistic looking one, Twilight Princess, I never finished.
Oh, really? See, I like Twilight Princess fine. Like, it wasn't like my favorite Zelda game. Far from. But I liked it just fine. Like, I beat it I got all the hard containers. Like, so I guess, you could say I completed it as much as possible. It was good. It was good. Like, I didn't hate the slashing and shit like that with the Wii remote. So that was a plus. Mark says, with the tiers coming to PlayStation Plus, why does it seem like the main one that'll be worth it will be tier 2? After that, the default tier is in second place, with the premium one coming in third. What are your thoughts on value? I'm like Micah, where I don't want to look back too much because there's so much out right now that it would just add way too much to my backlog. We talked about value last week, and we both think it's pretty decent for what's on offer.
Yeah, for me, myself, personally, I feel as though if I was going to get this one, it would be tier 2. I have no desire to, I don't have a lot of time anymore. So the time that I do have, I want to spend on games that I'm really, really going to love. And it would have to be a phenomenal back catalog.
Yeah.
Right. And the PS2 has a phenomenal slate of games on it, but I just can't see myself going back. So I think it is a good value, especially if you are a very big PlayStation fan, like you grew up on it and you are a connoisseur of older video games. Sure, but for me, I'm one generation back, and then that's it. Like let's move forward.
I think for me, what really does matter is how good the cloud streaming is, because PS3 games will have to be streamed from the cloud, and PS2 and PS1 games and PSP games, for that matter, you would hope would be able to be streamed effectively from the cloud. And if that's the case, and you can remote play those games on your phone, I think that adds a lot of value there from that aspect. My mindset is it's only $20 more a year to have access to that stuff. It's or $3 more a month. If you're going to pay it monthly, you're going to pay $15 anyway. That's not a lot of money in my eyes. I think that's that's a throwaway amount of money that even if you don't get the true value out of that addition, you're not really hard done by it. So I honestly think the second tier is probably the least value, because you're paying the same price as you're paying for Game Pass, but you're not getting what the closest thing to the comparable Game Pass value is, which is the free, game trials, which they're offering with the premium tier.
Yeah, I'm curious as how that's going to work.
I mean, they've done it before. PlayStation Plus has tried that a couple times, actually, where they've done a free game trial with certain games where you could play it for 2 hours as part of your PlayStation Plus subscription. And, once you're done 2 hours, you have to buy the game, but your progress does carry over if you do end up buying the game. So if they do it like that and they put their new games on there, I don't think there's a ton of complaints, because, again, I don't think you're going to find too many folks out there that are going to tell you that PlayStation first-party games have not been worth the money that you've spent on them. So,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I get that Game Pass is a great deal in that respect, but as we talked about last week, it's foolish to expect all the other companies to do the same thing when you will pay $60 for those games.
Yeah, that's the thing, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy those games no matter what. I
Yeah.
don't need a 2-hour trial for God of War. I'm gonna buy it.
Right.
But I'm weird.
Yeah. Finally, not a question, but just John C. Posting an image of all the black women champions in wrestling right now, with Bianca Belair winning the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania, with Sasha Banks and Naomi winning tag titles, Jade Cargill and AEW, Trish Adora, who I don't know, and Tasha Steelz, who I also don't know because I don't watch Impact, or other. I don't even know what wrestling company Trish Adora is.
Looking at that belt, it might be the resurrection of that all black wrestling league that was out in the 90s. Jesus Christ, look at that belt. Got the motherland right on it. I think that belt looks dope.
Any brief WrestleMania thoughts? I know we said we weren't going to watch it. I lied. I watched pretty much all of night one, and I did tune in for the main event for night 2.
I didn't think it was bad. I was entertained. It was big, dumb fun. It was the Michael Bay of WrestleManias, right? Like it was just really stupid, but you know, a lot of flashy colors. The right people won the matches that they were supposed to win. They delivered on promises that and rumors and stuff like that. I think it was actually a pretty great show, and it wasn't a work day.
Yeah.
You know, it being spread out over 2 days. Even the stuff that was like, even the Austin McMahon stunner, which was like just the worst stunner ever. But like, yo, it was hilarious, right?
Also made up for by Austin Theory and Pat McAfee both doing pretty good stunner sells themselves. Like Austin Theory's was pretty great. Pat McAfee, I feel like Kurt Angle did this one too. Somebody else has done it where you just stand straight up and then just fall backwards like a tree.
Yeah.
To do the sell. Like I like that sell. That not a lot of people done. I thought night 1 was really good. Unfortunately, they had all the best matches on night 1. they unloaded the card. And like I know the Jackass match ended up good, but night 2 was really lackluster compared to night 1, which is unfortunate. But look, I thought Bianca and Becky started poorly but ended greatly. I was kind of worried at first because I was like, man, these two don't seem like they have a lot of chemistry, but the match ended up in a really good place. I thought the KO Steve Austin thing was really well done.
Because when he was doing the stomps, I was like, oh, this is kind of sad, man. Like,
that's what I was like stone cold. I was like, come on, man, like you got to be able to stomp a little bit with a little bit more urgency than that. And then he geared it up. I'm like, all right. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a Luthez press. I feel like we could have easily gotten one of those.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I think like you said, night 1 was better than night 2.
Yeah.
Bianca Belair.
Like I said, even Cody Rhodes, I enjoyed coming back, even though I'm not the biggest Cody Rhodes fan.
I mean, it was the most AEW match I've ever seen in WWE with 85 false finishes.
Yeah.
But other than that, you know, don't do fucking false finishes like that with your finishers because it dilutes the effectiveness of your finishers, guys. Like 3 fucking finishes to put somebody down is not a testament to how strong the other person is. It's a testament to how weak your move is.
Yes.
But like aside from like
on the flip side, I was positively shocked at the restraint shown by Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns in terms of the amount of finishers in the match. Like even though we had like 5 spears, I fully expected like 10, and we only had 1 F5 if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a huge Becky Lynch fan, right? Like Becky just has go away heat for me. Like I understand her character is annoying, but like of the original like 4 horsewomen, I think she is the weakest in terms of like abilities.
Mm-hmm.
When her giving Bianca that black eye with that, like I forget what it was like a rolling like senton off the top rope or something.
Oh yeah, like I think she was going for. I think they were right. I think she was going for a senton, and she just underleaped on there.
Man, it infuriated me because I'm like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? And like, she knew she fucked up, and they like, you know how wrestlers kind of talk to each other. Like she's checking to make sure she's okay and all that. I'm like, you fucking, goddamn it, get better. Like this is Bianca's moment. Don't fucking ruin it.
I mean, they look kind of badass though with her rocking around the black eye. I'm not gonna lie. So
I mean, look, I think Bianca is the prettiest woman in wrestling today, and I don't need her face to have a giant fucking black eye on it. God damn it. No, but I actually really enjoyed that match towards the end, and it was a cathartic payoff for me specifically. Yeah, man, look, it was fun. Logan Paul, look, I know people like hate those dudes, but that guy is an athlete, and he did a really good job. Yo, I can't tell you how much I hate hearing Pat McAfee's voice. I, I I really hate it. I really hate his mid-Atlantic Pennsylvania accent. And I understand that I have a bit of a mid-Atlantic accent also, but like it's so pronounced with Pat McAfee. And it's
I
so
feel like I'd
annoying.
hate him more if he was a heel commentator. Like
Oh, if he was a heel
if he was that
commentator,
obnoxious and he was a heel, I'm more upset. I'm okay because he's not, because he
Roman, the Romans in God mode. Oh, like the alpha male of our species. Like, oh my God,
Yins know that Roman Reigns is gonna be coming.
Shut the fuck up, man. But at the same time, yo, I got much respect for him for putting in that work in that match, man. Like, it was fun.
I did not
really
realize
fun.
he was as young as he is. Like, I forgot that he
I didn't
retired
realize
from the NFL like stupid early.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was like, in my 34 years on this planet. Like, shut up, yo. Just please get somebody to talk for you, even while you're on commentary. But I have a lot of respect for him because yeah, he's a football player. He's a punter, right?
Yeah.
Come on, yo.
I gotta be honest. And I guess we'll leave it here. I don't need Vince McMahon on TV anymore, man.
Nah, I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because like the stunner, you know, is being roundly mocked, and it should. But to me, like, it's kind of the undergirding of like Vince just like, yeah, back in the day he could hang with that kind of shit when he was in his like 50s and maybe early 60s, but I don't think he can do it anymore.
Yeah, he's like what, 77?
Yeah, he's super old now.
You take a break, guys. You could take a break, dude.
Yeah.
Like like,
Well, plus, and plus he does, like
expects you to do that.
he sounds like an old man now. Like, he can't get that like McMahon
Yeah.
like the angry voice anymore. Yeah, so it feels like a quarterback that stays in the league for, you know, a season or two too long, and
Yeah.
you immediately see the drop off. And I love everything Seth Rollins does. I will follow that man to the end of the earth.
Seth Rollins is yeah, I'm not surprised that Triple H is like sees something in that guy, because
Yeah.
that guy's like Shawn Michaels, man. Like he can do it all, man. He can do it all. And if he gets into a program with Cody Rhodes, I will be a happy wrestling fan, because I think those two can go in every which way in the wrestling business. I'm gonna need Cody to not do his crying ass promos all the time. No, I can't do that every week. I can't even do it once a month. It's just like, I get it, but like, this WWE crowd is not the AEW crowd. Like, they're not gonna be weeping from your impassioned like promos. Like, I like Cody Rhodes, but I don't like Cody Rhodes as much as Cody Rhodes likes Cody Rhodes. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, just chill with some of that shit.
That is it for the post office, and therefore this podcast. Make sure you go to denspixels.com/fans to join the Discord so that you too can ask us questions that we'll respond to every week. Subscribe to the show and all the other shows in the TNP Studios umbrella, wherever you download fine podcasts. Make sure you go to youtube.com/denspixels. Subscribe there as well. Just subscribe everywhere. Subscribe everywhere. Follow everywhere. Twitch.tv/denspixels. DensePixels Brad on Twitch, Suppets Carry on Twitch, Apparition410 on Twitch. We just want you to go to every website on this free internet, and anywhere you see Dense Pixels, follow us. Twitter, wherever.
There you go.
That's what you should do.
That's exactly what you should do.
That's it for us. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you all for watching and listening. I usually do that in reverse order, so now I don't know what to say.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.